let's move on. We'll kind of do the same thing with the defensive line because we could sit here and talk all day about these guys. Got Justice Boone for defensive end. Big things expected out of Justin Boone. There's a lot of buzz around him, backed up by Kelby Collins. A lot of good stuff coming from Kelby Collins. Then Caleb Banks, the transfer from Louisville as well. Then Cam Jackson. We just heard Jaden talking about Cam Jackson. A lot of hype behind Cam Jackson. Cam Jackson with Desmond Watts as a 1-2 punch. Son, that's some big boys right there. There's even a picture tweeted. Cam Jackson said, "This is what you guys wanted, huh?" And it's him and Big Dez talking to one another. So I love that. Again, it sounds like the love for Cam Jackson across the board is tremendous, which I love hearing, man. It's glad that somebody like that can come in and be an impact player and take that leadership role. We interviewed him a few months back before he even showed up in Gainesville. That was what he came to said and what he wanted to do. That he wanted to come in, say, "Hey, I'm going to take over this. I'm going to be a leader. I'm going to bring that veteran presence and be, what it takes to be a winner. And we're going to bring a national championship back to Florida." So for somebody who come from Memphis, having that energy and having that excitement, and now we're hearing it this early on, really, really excites me, and it shows again the type of personality that Billy is going after. Followed by on the other edge is Princely. So that's the line there for the defensive line. Again, something we talk about time and time again: thickness, boys, absolute dogs out there on the lines, and just it starts with the trenches. And look, I'm looking at this now. We know. I'm excited for both sides of the ball on the line. I think, look, there's question marks in other areas, but this is where it starts. If you can get a nice solid foundation here, you could really, get the ball rolling and have a healthy season. Dave?
Yeah, and good part of having Cam Jackson on there with a couple of years of eligibility there too. So you'll get him for a couple of years there. And of course, Justice Boone, man, he came on. I think the first big play he had last year was that big sack on Will Levis in the Kentucky game that he really rocked him. And of course, we still wound up losing that game. But I mean, you see the plays that he can make, and then you have Caleb, Caleb Banks and everybody else that's there on that defensive line. And I'm really curious to see how much pressure does Austin Armstrong want to dial up, and how aggressive does he want to be on the defensive line, and maybe bring some more edge players up there. Of course, some linebackers too. That obviously they're not defensive line, but I'm really curious to see how aggressive he gets and how this defensive line performs up to, I don't know, the Tennessees, the Georgias, the big names out there in college football. I mean, you get a good test there with Utah the first game, and then obviously you get a cupcake game, and then you have Tennessee coming up. So I'm really curious to see what you get out of production, especially with Gervon Dexter leaving, and you got some of the other guys there too. So this defensive line, I don't know if there's questions, and I don't know if the questions are bad or if the questions are good. We're just gonna have to see.
Yeah, look, kind of speaking to the guys that left. I mean, Gervon's going to be hard to replace, second-round draft pick, and no disrespect to him. But look, I think the guys coming in I think they've done a great job of putting in quantity to make it for his quality that he brought. Britton Cox, obviously, we lost him during the middle of the year. They were able to pick up it right where he left off, so I don't feel like we're really missing too much. Princely is getting a ton of praise, especially coming out. There's a magazine, I think it was, where they talked about Princely being a top edge guy who they were excited to see. So I'm excited to go ahead.
No, that was nothing.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and so again, look, Cam Jackson placing into that because don't forget in the middle there, Chris McClellan and Desmond Watson really had, towards the end of the year were the guys in the center there. So now that they're taking a step back, think about that, right? Just kind of take that in for a second. Caleb Banks, Cam Jackson are coming in. Justice Boone, Princely on the edge. That's going to be their second year in that realm. I feel like they did a good job there. Even you said, like, look, they had some highlight moments where, like, hey, those are some exciting stuff. But the middle of the pack, and Big Dez and Chris did a phenomenal job last year. I think where they may have dropped the ball was just lack of experience. That showed a few times. But bringing these two guys in and being able to fill the void, you've got Desmond Watts and Chris McClellan now coming in as a backup. That's huge, man. That defense, yeah. I'm really excited about it. And we saw what they're able to bring in the spring game and just the power and the speed that they plan on bringing. Dave, go ahead. What were you saying?
I say, oh yeah. I mean, especially when you have good quality backups, especially when you bring in guys like this, obviously that, like, if somebody were to get hurt, but let's hope that doesn't happen. But if somebody were to get hurt, you're bringing in a quality guy to take his spot. Now, of course, somebody gets hurt with the quality guy taking your spot, then you're going to have some problems. But at least Florida has some depth there when it comes to the defensive line.
And look, I think that was a question mark last year.
Yeah.
Steve?
Look, the one thing I'll say is just based on the way that it looks like the new defensive coordinator wants to run that defense, if he can clog up the middle of the field strictly by just keeping just two big healthy bodies right there in the middle, it's not going to allow anybody to run through the A or the B gap. So you're going to have to push people outside on the running game. Now you're talking about being able to use those linebackers more freely. Now these guys are unscathed. They're not being caught up by a guard, a pull, maybe even a dual tight end set, which we know that Utah loves to run. They love to use those tight ends in multiple different ways. But if you can just clog up the middle with a rotational balance of bodies and consistently do that, you're going to be able to force the offense into certain scenarios that they don't want to be in. The easiest thing for an offense to do is to turn around, hand the ball off, let the running back hit that A gap, hit that B gap, and hit it hard, and then
wear the linebackers out, yeah.
Right, and just wear the linebackers out because you can keep the defensive line tied up. If that defensive line, especially in the middle, is able to hold down and
work as a
anchor from the
cohesive
middle,
unit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Desmond for sure. I'm not super familiar with the other guy, the Cam guy that you guys have there.
He's from Memphis, so I mean we're about as familiar as you are. It's just
sure.
the hype behind him is insane right now. So I mean, obviously did a lot of good things at Memphis.
Yep.
The expectations for him are to come in and do a great job. So that's where the hype is. And again, if he's getting the starting nod that pretty quickly, which again Dez really kind of took that role and stepped up and was the guy. I don't think he's losing it in a bad way, right? I think he's losing it in a good way. And
yep.
it's promising. I think there was a big question mark last year with depth, and weirdly so, putting this lineup together, I feel more confident. I know that there's a huge question mark around the quarterback position. Well, and this is what's funny too. Again, everyone's like, you lost Anthony Richardson. You would have had this if we would have had this conversation in the middle of the season. Everybody was asking to put Kitten in at some point. But now because Anthony Richardson was a first-round draft pick, again, this isn't a knock towards Anthony, keep mind you. But first-round draft pick, the hype behind Anthony has now reset. And his hype for NFL career is through the roof. It's like, well, you just lost a first-round draft pick. If 6 months ago, you weren't saying that. So don't say that we lost anything because 6 months ago, we were looking to replace it middle of the season. I think when Kitna came in, we were like, oh, thank goodness. So, again, I think it is going to be hard to replace Anthony. There's an athletic ability that, yes, he brings to the table.
Sure.
I think he single-handedly kept us in games and won a few games just by his athletic ability, yes.
But he lost you a few games.
He did.
Let's be honest about it.
I
mean, and damn near lost the USF game. I mean, what was that, a 7-point game that game finally turned out to be? And it was a nail biter, if I'm not mistaken, all the way up through the beginning or middle of the fourth quarter. So, look, Richardson did a lot of positive things for that offense. He kept defenses a little bit guessing because if one linebacker or one safety blows a coverage, that kid's taken off for 80 yards, right? So that changes the way that a defense wants to just account for the other just threats on the field, the wide receivers, the tight ends, the running backs, right? So if you can take that part away, then yes, it'll make a defense's life a little bit easier. On the flip side of that, if you are a defense and you've got a kid who will come out either 100 miles an hour like Richardson played sometimes, or come out and just be completely flat, well, that's obviously you're going to be able to adjust to that as well. And as long as you're taking away the big play, can he make the regular play? Can he make the 5-yard in? Can he make the 10-yard slant? Can he make the 20-yard out? Can he can he throw a post route when there's safeties up there? So look, it's a dynamic, right? So you're gaining some by having a more consistent quarterback that plays the quarterback position the way that most quarterbacks do.
Sure.
But you are also losing a little bit of the athletics, like potential that defenses had to account for. It's been,
Yep.
and we've been talking about
That's
this in
the
the
biggest thing
Discord a lot about what's is there a positive, is there a negative, where's the zero sum game come in that addition
for me, I think it's, and from what we've heard too, again, like talking with Judd, he's been on the show a few times where he talked about how they gave Anthony the reins of, hey, make the decision. And I think with having such an athletic ability, sometimes, he would almost make a poor decision because there was just so many options that he had. Sometimes you simplify the game a little bit, it might be more beneficial. And I've been preaching this for a very long time. I haven't been wrong yet about my thoughts on Billy, so I feel like I'm just going to keep pounding the horse of, look, I feel like they're going to run a more simplified offense. When you simplify things, it allows for things to excel and be better, and I think that's the direction that things are headed. But look, time will tell. I hope you guys are enjoying this. This is kind of fun. This is good football talk here. I hope you guys are enjoying the graphics as well. If you are, drop a like, show some love. But this
Sheldon's
is
pumped about these graphics. He was
it's,
talking about it.
It spices it up a little bit. You know what I mean? He kind of puts it. I like, me, I like to draw. I like to put a visual to a thought. So when you can see what we're talking about, and you kind of get like, this is kind of putting a pen to paper, right? We kind of finally get to see what the team's going to look like or expected to look like in this upcoming season. So, let's move on to our cornerback. Excuse me. We've got Jason Marshall and Kimber with Devin Moore and Jakeem Jackson with the backup positions. So we'll go ahead and plug those guys in so you can look at them. Kimber obviously transferred from Georgia, and then Jason Marshall. But look, I think that room is going to be a rotational room too. Devin Moore had a lot of hype and noise behind him last year as somebody who's going to possibly take over a starting job as a freshman. Even in the article that Zach wrote, it says, look, Marshall's cornerback run with Kimber and Moore competing to start opposite of him. So Kimber has the edge right now. But look, that's a good problem to have, having guys that you can, again, rotate through. And I think something last year we lacked, again, even though Moore showed a lot of promise, still young, still had a lot to learn. So again, that depth is starting to come together, which is really exciting. And I think we kind of got burned a lot with our cornerbacks last year, and having to do a lot of work. And I think a lot of that has to do with linebackers being tired due to the fact of that line being a little break. So everything we were kind of just talking about, right? It kind of starts to goes downstream. And if we can start at the trenches, it'll allow for take the stress off of everywhere else. So again, excited to see what the cornerbacks are able to do. Dave?
Yeah, man, this is one of the positions I'm really excited about. And of course, like last year when you had the conundrums with the cornerbacks, it was based on somebody not doing their job. Maybe the safety was out of place and then they had to make up for him, or, it just a bunch of miscommunication, a bunch of just mistakes all in the backfield last year. And Jason Marshall, obviously, he's one of the best cornerbacks in college football. I mean, if you pull up his PFF stats, they're pretty high. Not a lot of teams are throwing towards his way because of that. But when you have a cornerback that's that much of a threat and teams don't want to throw at him, that's a good problem to have, right? And of course, he's backed up. As you said, Devin Moore is another guy that they were going to make a starter. And you talk about Jalen Kimber. This kid was going to start at Georgia before he transferred. Like, they had him as a projected starter to be on that defense, and now he will be at that second spot. And backing him up, Jakeem Jackson. I mean, this guy, and I'm telling you, Jakeem Jackson, I'm not trying to pump up and toot my own horn, but man, I mean, if you've seen the kid's highlights, Corey Raymond sought him out. He was ranked like 400 in the start of the class, made it to the top 50. See the kid's highlights, the burst of speed that he has, the coverage skills that he has, just makes me so excited that even if one of these guys had to rotate out or something were to happen, I'm very confident that Devin Moore, Jakeem Jackson could immediately take that spot, make an impact. And you see these corners, they come in all the time as freshmen, and they're immediate impact players. So I'm pretty excited for the cornerback room, especially as long as all the communication in the backfield. And of course, Austin Armstrong, he's here, he's a different defensive coordinator. If the communication can get right, I mean, this could be a deadly combo of cornerbacks.
Yeah, look, the one thing I will say from watching some of the Florida defenses that they put out there last year is it felt like the back end of the defense, the secondary, seemed out of sync. It seemed like there was always somebody who was either not sure if they were supposed to be blitzing, or if it was a blitz, were they a couple of steps too late on the snap, or it just felt like the secondary was just thinking more than they were playing.
Reacting.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
For sure.
Now look,
playing catch up, right? Like having to make up for again, it felt like
thinking too much.
Ventrell Miller was trying to just do too much, and you'd find himself in the wrong position because he was trying to pick up somebody else's pieces.
Yep.
So, look, I think that's something that hopefully Armstrong can come in and allow. And you heard Jaden, right? We all have to work as a cohesive unit. It's not just one player. Now, when you watch those Elite 11s and you watch those camps, the defense always has the edge. Even when you watch the Under Armour game or the All-American game, the defense has the edge because the offenses have as much time to get together and to build a relationship, and it's all just about athleticism and reacting. Well, come game time, you should have that plus the cohesiveness because the offense is also going to be locked in. So it felt like we were trying to play just athletic football, right, and react versus being a cohesive unit. So let's move on to the linebacker room. And real quick, super chat from Luke says, wanted to say Holly's setup looks much better. Well, it looks better when he's sitting 2 feet from me. When he's in the same exact studio and I get to control his camera and everything, he's going to look a lot cuter.
It's amazing.
Moving on to the linebacker room, we've got, again, another exciting room. Even though with the loss of Ventrell Miller, this room, it doesn't look as depleted as it may have been. I think, look, Amari Burney did great last year, but I know the excitement for Burney going into the season was not there. I think it's there this time with Shamar James, who obviously is expected to have a big season. He showed some signs last year of really getting it together. And then Tahada Mitchell, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, the transfer from Ohio State, I believe. Again, another senior presence. We haven't heard much noise about him like we have with others like the Cam Jacksons of the world, but somebody, again, it's great to have, to me, a veteran presence. We're not just relying on youth there. Derek Wingo, coming off an injury, we saw him. He had like a little bit of a foot brace. He seemed fine. I think I saw my Friday Night Lights. He looked good to go. And then Scooby Williams, also, the 4 guys. So a lot of potential in that room. Again, not a Ventrell Miller-like. I think all these guys have the ability to step up and be that guy. But Amari Burney had a pretty decent senior season, in my opinion. Again, the excitement wasn't there. I think we had a lot of him and Trey Dean were kind of in that same camp of like, this guy's still here, like what's going on? And Armani kind of left on good terms. Trey, not so much. But these guys I'm really excited about. And again, the defense, when I was actually reading this, I'm like, I'm not as nervous about the defense anymore, like as we were last year. There's a lot of question marks that this year I don't feel are the same. Dave?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the linebacker room, it's just stacked with talent. I mean, all these kids were either top 100 or top 50 in high school. And Taraja Mitchell was I believe, the number 2 linebacker in his class. And, obviously battled some injuries there at Ohio State. So, transfers here to Florida. You got Shamar James, obviously one of the big, highly ranked guys that was, I believe he was a 5-star on Rivals and top 50, I think anywhere else that you looked. You're getting him in there too. And he had a lot of experience last year. He played a lot last year. So it's not like you're getting somebody that's inexperienced. Shamar James did play a lot. Yeah. And then, I mean, you got Derek Wingo, another guy that was a 5-star, top 50 guy, composite. We haven't seen much from him ever since he's been here. I don't know what it is. If he's struggling, I have no clue. But he's going to have to get some playing time there too as well. I mean, I just like when it comes to like the cornerback room, the linebacker room, and even kind of the safety room a little bit. I think safety's taken a little bit and we'll get into that, but I think it's taken a little bit of a, hiatus from getting talent in here. And it's probably been our weaker position since Chauncey Gardner-Johnson left the University of Florida. But luckily we're upgrading that talent here in this class. I'm pretty excited, man, just for that defensive front at cornerback, at linebacker. And then, of course, you got your big question at safety, which we'll get into here.
Yeah, let's do. So we'll do real quick. We'll add the safeties, strong safety, and then the star, which is Jarius Perkins. Obviously, kind of that rotational between linebacker and star. So that's why I've got that spot open for Perkins. And then R.J. Moten, another transfer from Michigan, and then Miguel Mitchell being safety. So he's got, again, Kamari Wilson and Jordan Castle as the backup, which is not a horrible backup for safety because Kamari Wilson had a lot of time last year where he was getting the nod, and I thought he was going to get the nod to be the guy this year. I don't know, R.J. Moten coming in and kind of being able to step in. I don't hate it. Again, it's a Trey Dean situation. You've got a veteran guy coming in, but hopefully an upgrade from Trey Dean. Again, I'm not trying to beat anybody up, but we saw Dave criticized Trey Dean a little bit last year on the bird, and look, he wasn't wrong in his he's just putting out stats. But when the NFL Combine came out, I mean, he didn't really kind of knock the socks off anybody. So I think we got a live body there, which we could see some upgrades. And I think again, going back to just the domino effect and the progression on the defense, everyone felt by the time you got to the back of the safety, to the end of the bus, it's like a telephone game. Ain't nobody got a fucking clue what's going on. So how much of it was to blame on Trey Dean? How much of it was to blame on just the coordination of the team? I don't know, but who knows? We'll see. But look, I think everything's moving in the right direction, and I think these guys that are filling in these roles are going to do a great job. Dave, we'll go to you, and then I'll go back to Steve.
Yeah, that was a nasty DM I got from him, but I ignored him anyway. I was about to send him the link to his PFF stats, but it's hey, you know what? As I say on Twitter, all I do is just report the news, man. It's nothing against anybody, but yeah, man. RJ Moten coming in here from Michigan, man. I mean, he made plays when he was there, of course, transferred with some experience. So obviously that's an upgrade if you were to ask me from what we have had.
Yeah,
I mean,
for
we
sure.
haven't had much since Gardner Johnson. And so I would assume this is an upgrade right here. And then you got Miguel Mitchell. I mean, he's been here for a while, and you got Kamari Wilson there too as a sophomore. We haven't seen much from him yet. Do we see more from Kamari Wilson at the other spot? And then of course you got Dejon Johnson coming in here too, probably going to play some of that spot there as well. And Jordan Castell. It's just you've got guys that are talented, but you just have not seen anything from that safety spot in so long. And now that Corey Raymond is starting to kind of take over those positions there in the backfield, do we see more production from some of these safeties that we didn't see before when they were on the field? That's going to be another question. Obviously, you're another year older. You're probably a little bit stronger, probably a little bit faster. So, this is probably the only question mark that I have in this defensive backfield is that safety. And we're going to get our first look at it with Austin Armstrong and Corey Raymond. So I'm here for it. I like the RJ Moten ad, and I got to see something else from some of these other safeties.
Look, there is one thing I will say for the Florida defense and watching them play, and obviously FSU having played against them every year, is there is a lineage of just safeties that have come through there and been just absolute battering rams. Just guys who can cover 90% of the field. It feels like it almost feels like there's two of them out there, but at the same time, there was always that one guy who's just a cannonball that's just gonna come down and blow up one of the wide receivers coming across the middle, or just a running play that's trying to make it to the outside. And Florida has not had that in quite some time. Now, look, I know from what I can gather so far, Armstrong's defensive philosophy is to get the safeties and to kind of use the defensive backs in a little bit more creative way than I think that what you guys have seen in the last few years, which is going to be, I think, good and bad. Armstrong's going to want to use those safeties as these blitzing out of nowhere, fill the box safeties, star players, right? Like these guys that are lining up in the 7 versus lining up and playing a cover 2. But if he doesn't have the talent to do it, how is he going to maneuver around that? Is it going to get him out of his natural game plan of how he likes to use those safeties? Look, I think that Armstrong is a genius defensive scheming guy. I don't know if right now at the safety position, I feel like as we've gone over to these different positions that he probably feels good about the majority.
Yeah, but I think Corey Raymond
safeties
taking over the secondary is going to help with that.
But I think he needs talent. I think he needs a little bit more talent at that spot.
Sure, but again, I think that's what we talk about too with the front end being help. It'll help with that, right? You don't have to rely as much on that guy being talented if you can get the front end put together. I mean, obviously, you still want guys that can do a good job. But look, good stuff, man. We went for a long time, but I mean, I think hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, drop a like. Again, the like lets the YouTube know that we're doing a good job.